Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make this inside of Blender. Yes, that's right, today we're making the pool rooms, because you don't really need another Blender backrooms tutorial. Like you really don't. So I thought it would actually be more fun to look at the backroom's slightly younger, twice removed cousin, the pool rooms. And it's actually really easy to make. We'll be going over a few main steps through this video, such as how to make a fully procedural and customizable tile material, how to make water that can move and interact with objects without using simulations, building an environment, realistic camera movement, using a different technique than last time, and finally, editing and sound effects. It's gonna be a fun one, so strap up and get ready to dive into the pool rooms. Get it? Dive? You get? Oh, I'm too good. Now, what's so great about the pool rooms is that it's only made up of two materials, these tiled walls and the water. And that's it. That makes this environment incredibly easy to make. And we're gonna start off by making our tile material. Let's just pop down here and open up our shader editor. I'm gonna expand mine upwards like this, open up rendered view so we can see everything that we're gonna be doing here, scroll in. My cube already has a material, but I'm just gonna rename it to tile. You can rename it to whatever you'd like, but tile, to me at least, makes the most sense. Now let's come down here and press Shift A, and let's just type in brick texture. Pop the color of your brick texture to the base color of your principled BSDF, and you get something like this, which looks pretty good. We're going to change it a little bit. If you have the Node Wrangler add-on installed, if you don't, just go up to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and just type in Node Wrangler. It comes free with Blender. All you gotta do is hit that little check mark. If you have that installed, you can just select your brick texture and press Control T, and that'll give you this mapping and texture coordinate little setup doohickey right here. We're going to come over here to the texture coordinate. Instead of generated plug into the vector, we're going to move the UV into the vector, and that makes our material look like this. There's a couple settings over on the brick texture that we have to change. Instead of for the offset, we're going to change that to 0. Now they're rectangles, we don't want that, so we're going to come down to the brick width and row height, and we're just going to make them equal the same. So the width is 0.5, so I'm going to make the height 0.5. Now they're squares. Now up to the scale, let's make it a decibel of 4. And now our squares line up on all sides. They're a little big though, so I'm gonna bump mine up to something like 16. I mean, honestly, we're already almost there. Like, it kind of looks like tiles already. There are a few more steps though, so don't get ahead of yourself. But you're doing great. So let's get a noise texture and color ramp. Love me some color ramps. Now let's plug in the color factor of this noise texture to this color ramp. I'm gonna plug the color output of the color ramp to the color of the mortar, and it's gonna take a little second, but now, whoa, our mortar looks weird. I like this just because it adds a little more detail to it. So let's ramp up our scale, let's crank up our detail to 15, and let's up our roughness, which will really help with some realism. So now you can see just how much more detailed that got. We'll bump up our lactuarity, lactu. I've never known what that word says, but this one, we're gonna bump up this one. Let's add a bump node. And we're just gonna put that right here, put the normal into the normal of our principled BSDF, and then let's just plug in the color of our brick texture to the height and see what happens. So that actually looks infinitely better, although it seems our tiles are inset and our grout is bumping out, which is not what we want. So let's just hit invert. That's perfect. This is honestly, you could stop here, but we're going to add just a few more little embellishing features to make our tile look even more realistic. Now let's bring this little point light down here. Boom. The roughness of these tiles is a little plain. So we're just going to shift D these two bad boys and duplicate them. So we're going to take the color of this color ramp and we're going to bring it up right to the roughness of our principled BSDF. Please ignore how not organized my node setup is. I hold no shame, but you know, I feel like you guys are silently judging me. Let's just get a good angle and you can actually kind of see what this is doing already to our material right here. So you can see that like that roughness is now being affected by the noise texture. Now, one final thing that we can add, this might be up to personal preference. I like it a lot. Our tiles look just a little too perfect. So, that's right, let's add in another noise texture and color ramp. Let's just shift D. And this time we're gonna plug it into the mortar size. You'll see that it now looks like this. We're gonna have to tweak it just a little bit. So let's pop the black onto this side and the white over here. And bring the black down, and here's our tiles. It being on complete white is a little harsh for me, so I'm going to darken that. And now we're kind of getting the effect that I like. You can see how it kind of makes the grout just slightly varied in width in different areas and just gives it that extra level of realism. But yeah, that's our tile material all done. Super simple. And with that done, we're going to move on to the water. So let's just shift A in a little plane for ourselves. Let's scale it up. Actually, get the tile out of here. First thing we want to do, add a new material, and let's name it, oh wow, who would have guessed, water. But actually, before we start making our material, we need to do a couple of other things first. So let's come into our render properties up here at the top. I use Eevee. If you use cycles, I don't think this is going to work exactly the same. But you can feel free to look up a water tutorial for cycles if you want. So in our render properties, we just want to come down. Well, first you can check all of these because all of these things are nice. But the thing we actually need for the material is going to be in screen space reflection. So let's drop down that menu. Just one thing. Let's hit refraction. Boom. Done. That's actually all you had to do. I made it sound like it was going to be a lot more than that. Let's go back to our plane, our water, and let's go down to our material section, where we're going to come down to here, and where it says settings, there's a little one called ray trace refraction, and we're going to click on that as well. And then you can see that nothing happened. But if we go back to our shader editor, hit transmission and put the weight up, and we can actually see how that transparency is working. You can see the tile under the water, which is really cool. So look, and the deeper it gets under the water, the less you can see it. The roughness also will help control the transparency, so if you want it more transparent. I'm gonna leave mine around here, because water is also very reflective, so you'll want that pretty low. Now, let's get into the actual nodes of everything. So let's add a noise texture node. And we're going to want to plug this into the normal attribute of our water. And now we get this cool, like, wavy sort of thing. Actually, that's pretty much it. We want to just make this blue, probably. Not too blue, because then it looks kind of unnatural. But, yeah, this is our water, our water thing. You can change the distortion. I feel like that gives it a bit more of a watery look. So now let's get into animating the water. So let's select our noise texture. Hit Control T, get a little node wrangler action going on here. If we select the X location and type in, this is kind of like a little, it's like breaking into the matrix a little bit. Type in pound or hashtag frame \50 and hit enter. So now our X coordinate is like this cool like purple color, and if we hit play, it moves. Actually, let's go into like a thing with an HDRI. That'll look a bit cooler. If we were to scale this up, now this is like really fast, so if we want to change this, we can like ramp this up higher, and now kind of make it slower. And look, now it's like got this little wavery effect. It's really neat. Okay, so now that our water material is done, I'm going to show you guys one of the coolest tricks I have ever learned in my time in Blender. How to make water move and interact with objects without creating a fluid simulation. This is actually like the coolest thing I've ever learned. Like, I hate simulations and I've avoided them for like my whole life because my computer doesn't like them, and neither do I. So let's go over to our modifier tab and add in an ocean modifier. Now, okay, whoa, that made the water really, really big. Let's scale that down. All right, so once we have it scaled down a little bit, let's just go to the time setting. And we're actually gonna do that little matrix breaking trick that we did last time where we type in hashtag frame \. This time, let's do 25. Now that turns purple, and let's hit play. And now we have this really cool little like wavering. So now the surface is actually deforming and waving as well as the normal. Now we might want to just scale down the waves, so you can select the waves and just bring the scale down. I want mine at a nice 0.2 because it's not like we're actually in the ocean, we're in the pool rooms. So the water should be relatively still. This is fine. This looks good. Now, let's get on to like the actual cool part. Add in just a new material. Let's get a Suzanne head. Let's move it over, give it a new material. Let's make it yellow. Now, with our plane selected, let's go down to the physics tab and add dynamic paint. Once we have this, we want it to be a canvas, so leave that alone and hit add canvas. And then we want to go down to where it says surface type. Instead of paint, we want waves. Now, let's select our Suzanne monkey, or basically whatever object you want to be interacting with the water. So we want to go back to the physics tab. Let's get dynamic paint. This time, we're going to click where it says canvas and change it to brush. Then we're going to want to hit add brush. And once we've hit add brush, let's hit play. And it's actually oh wait, hold on. Wait, all right, let's go back to our viewport shading so we can actually see what this is doing. So hit play. And now, while your animation is playing, you can actually see in real time the Suzanne monkey head is pushing and flowing through the water. This is literally like one of the coolest Blender tricks that I've ever learned in my life. And this is fully customizable also, by the way. Now, obviously, there's some things that a fluid sim would be a bit more useful than this, you know, in certain situations. But for what we're doing, this is perfect and a major time saver, and can be used in a lot of different projects. So if you ever wanted to do something with water, but you didn't want to have to go through the hassle of making a fluid sim, you're welcome. This is pretty much the end of our material segment. We have our tile, we have our water, we have our interactable water, and now it's time to move on to building the environment. Hey, I know, what's happening? Why'd the tutorial stop? Well, I've got to tell you about our little sponsor today. It's me. Did you guys know I have a Patreon? Because I do. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support me and my work, as well as get a shout out at the end of my videos. And if you pledge $3 or $5 a month, you even get cool benefits like early video access, Blender files, including the one from this video, behind the scenes content, and if you don't want to pledge your wallet and soul to me for all of eternity, then perhaps you'd be willing to make the sweet one-time purchase of this awesome t-shirt. Yes, that's right, folks, we have merch. It's black, it's red, and it's sexy. Even I got one. Look how happy I am, sweet little consumer. And you can have one too. Starting at just $20.03, you can get one of these puppies for yourself, for a friend, or for your grandma. She'll love it. So please, if you enjoy my work or are known for making poor financial decisions, go check out the Patreon and go check out my Redbubble store using those links down in the description. And now that we have all our materials made, it's finally time to do the cool part, actually building the pool rooms. I start by adding a cylinder to make my pillars. I go into edit mode using tab and select all the faces and press U and select cube projection. I then go into the UV editing tab and move the faces around to scale the tile texture to how I want. Just FYI, we're going to be doing this method for all of our objects. Yippee! Then I add a cube and scale it up. This is going to be our room. In edit mode, I select the different planes of the cube and then I just press P to separate them. Then I move my cylinder into the room and give it an array modifier to make my one pillar into lot of pillar. Next, I duplicate my floor plane and raise it up to later become the water. And then I start applying my materials to the rest of the room, doing that same unwrapping process for the tile objects, and then creating my node setup for the water material that we went over earlier. I then realized, boy, it's dark in here, so let's add some lights. I just used a simple area light facing down from my ceiling and added an emissive square plane above each one, randomly placing them around the ceiling. We have light. I also added a principled volume to my scene to give it that spooky, foggy atmosphere. Then I jump into camera view and parent a spotlight to my camera. Now we have a flashlight. Play with the settings on your flashlight as you please, although I do recommend raising the blend option. It just makes the edges fuzzier and less harsh and gives it a much more realistic look. Then I render the scene for the first time. Looks pretty good, but it's still missing something, so I go into the compositing tab and add a lens distortion node. I went over this node in more detail in my analog horror video, but basically this node will give a slight fisheye effect and chromatic aberration to your render, helping bring that footage look that we're going for. I also knew that at some point I wanted a creepy creature to be seen swimming through the water. So I add a sphere and do some simple sculpting to make this basic sea monster shape. And then, after some very complex rigging that I spent a lot of time on, I slap on a material from Blender Kit and call it a day. The monster is also made into a brush object, like we talked about in our material section, so then, when he moves through the water, it actually ripples and flows around him. Whoa! Once you're done with the water, our environment is complete. Now I know, we sped through the environment process quite a bit, which we generally kind of do, but the goal of the tutorial is that you build your own scene using the materials and other tools that I gave you, not necessarily follow mine to a T. However, if you do want this exact environment, I think I heard the blend files are like over on my Patreon or something. So, if you want to check that out, feel free. So now it's time to start animating. Ooh. Now we went over camera animation in my last found footage tutorial, and I could be lazy and show you guys the exact same technique as last time, but that would be lame. So instead, I took some of your suggestions and found a better and easier way to get that sweet handheld look to our camera footage. All you have to do is download the Camera Shakeify add-on, which is totally free by the way, using this link, which will be in the description. Just go to the GitHub page, click on the green code button, and hit download zip. Then just pop over to your preferences page in Blender, put it in your add-ons, and you'll be good to go. Now, inside Blender, I made this little demo scene just to show you how the camera works and everything. If your add-on is installed, you should be good to go. You can go over to your camera settings over here, and there's going to be a nice shiny brand new panel called Camera Shakeify. And this is pretty much all we need to start animating our camera. So it's all going to be in this little panel right here. So to start off, let's just hit 0 on the numpad. That brings us into our camera view, and this is our little viewport here. Now in Camera Shakeify, let's add some shake. So let's hit that little plus button right there, and just for funsies, go ahead and hit spacebar. Your camera's moving. It's already moving. As cool as that is, it gets better. If you go over to Camera Shakeify and you do this little drop-down menu, these are all of the different presets that they have available. This is all motion tracked. This is not procedurally generated noise. This is tracked from actually someone holding a camera and walking around with it. So it feels much more organic than the noise does, the way I taught you guys in the last video. A lot of you recommended this method to me, and I thought, wow, actually that's way cooler and better than what I was teaching everyone. But anyway, this method is super cool. They have investigation, they have a walk, so you can have a nice walking animation. They have handy cam running, which is running. And if these aren't good enough for you, you can actually just alter them with the settings below. Influence is basically the strength. So if this run is a little too strong for you, you can just crank it way down, and boom, now you kind of have like a subtle shake. If your character is seeing something spooky in the pool rooms, scale is kind of just like the scale of the motions. So if you want like really quick shaking, you want really big shakes like that, yeah, you can change the speed, you can change all these things. And then the coolest part is you can actually keyframe between these. So if I hit the plus icon, I can actually make another one, and these are keyframeable. You can keyframe these. So if you want to go from a running to a walk, you can just swap between them. You can drop one down to 0 influence and bump the second one up to 1. I actually did this in my most recent animation, which you should totally go watch, by the way. So yeah, all you have to do then is just do that a bunch of times, move your camera around the scene, it takes like 5 minutes. Honestly, it's the fastest part of the process. And this add-on just makes it look so realistic. I mean, that's pretty much all you have left to do for your animation. So, coming back to my scene, I parent this cube underneath my camera to create ripples, as if there's actually someone wading through the water of the pool rooms. However, you can see that the cube not only follows the camera's location, but also its rotation, so whenever the camera turns, the cube will come up out of the water, and we do not want this. So instead, I add a constraint to the cube called copy location. This has it follow the camera's location, but not its rotation. So that way, it stays underneath the camera and follows it, but it also stays in the water. Then we just make the cube into a brush object, and now our camera creates ripples. After this, I just go ahead and do everything we talked about in the previous section. Keyframe the camera's locations, throw in a mix of running and walking, animate the monster swimming around, and pretty quickly, the animation's done. With our animation rendered, it's time to take it into the editing software. I'm going to be using DaVinci Resolve, which is a completely free and amazing editing software. Now, I rendered my footage out in chunks just for efficiency, so I line up all my clips on my timeline and then move on to sound. To start off my animation, I use a program called Vital Synth to create this great build-up noise. And then I grab this glitching effect I just found off of YouTube. For the rest of my sound effects, I've found Pixabay to be a really great free resource for sound effects. It has a massive library to choose from, and you're basically guaranteed to find whatever you're looking for. Using a combination of that and YouTube's audio library, I just throw in some ambiances, some water splashes. I use this lion audio for my monster sounds. Then, an additional but optional step is to add a VHS filter. To make my filter, I use this tutorial for Premiere Pro by Tyler White, but he also has a tutorial for a similar effect for a free program called CapCut. You know, if you don't own a pirated copy of Premiere Pro like everybody else. But once you've got your sound effects, your VHS filter, and everything else in order, your animation is good to go. Here's how mine turned out. And that's a wrap for the pool rooms. Thank you so much for all of you who have watched all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and were able to learn some cool new tricks. And if you've made your own version of the pool rooms or have any other cool creations you've made, come share it over on my Discord server. I love watching your guys' animations. It's always so much fun. So please come share them with me and the rest of the community using the link down in the description.